Hey everybody, got some new cards. Let's get right into it. First up, finally, the Flash Bomb Peddler. 2 mana, 1/3. When you play a spell, plant one Flash Bomb trap randomly in the top 8 cards of the enemy deck. So, it's only one at a time, but Flash Bombs do more work, kind of, sometimes, randomly. Either way, this is going to be a way more reliable, consistent source of flash bombs compared to the 2/1 elusive that will maybe get a single hit in, probably not. This guy is going to actually survive on the board. He comes in on turn 2, so he actually curves into Caitlyn without you needing to worry too much. It kind of fits pretty well into the curve of a Caitlyn control-y kind of deck that you might be going for. Amazing. Super happy to see it. I wish it had been out the entire time. But let's move on to the Augmented Clockling. 4 mana 2/2 elusive. On play, predict, then draw 1 and reduce its cost by 1. So, this is kind of a combination between uh let's see, the time trick, because it predicts then draws, but it's also reducing the cost. So that makes it, that just kind of fits into the P&Z thing, what with Progress Day having always existed. But the stat line and cost is pretty much Zap Spray Fin, but instead of a tuning, the thing that you're drawing is going to cost 1 less. So it's similar to a tune, kind of, in a way. A little bit. It's comparable. Either way, this card, amazing. Totally going to see play. It might be somewhat of a staple, similar to Zap, especially because you don't need to run cheap spells like Zap does. This just kind of works. You're never going to be sad about getting a discount, especially after predicting. So yeah, Augmented Clockling, really good. Also a really good card. Then we move on to a fun card. 3 mana, 2/4. Okay, defensive stat line. When I'm summoned, it is going to. Let's see. Read that off. When I'm summoned, create at the bottom of your deck 2 random level 2 champions that aren't in your hand, deck, or play. So very similar to the Howling Abyss in Freljord, except it's putting it at the bottom of your deck instead of into your hand. Additionally, it is making 2 random ones, so they're not going to be 2 copies of the same one. It's on summon, so any kind of duplication stuff that you can find all over the place, you can really spam this out. But at the bottom of your deck, not really the most useful place, so this is obviously here to work with Predict. Use Predict to either find them, or at the very least shuffle them so that maybe you'll draw them. It's a fun archetype that Predict does, of just shuffling very powerful things into your deck and then trying to fish them out before you lose to an opponent that's doing a more straightforward game plan. Uh, and it's not like the what is that little spell called? That let's see. The Fallen Feline, it's a Hexite Crystal. That's right. It's not like the Hexite Crystal, so you don't get to draw it for free, which is maybe unfortunate, but that's fine. You still want to run at least one Predict just to get it not at the bottom of your deck. Very fun. I think it's totally fine because although you're getting level 2 champions, you still have to play them. You have to find them, and then you have to find time to play them, and then, hopefully it's not a level 2 Teemo or something. but a very fun card. I don't think it's gonna be, you know, climbing ladders or anything like that too much, but it should create some very fun situations as long as you kind of build your deck around wanting to make use of it. One small little thing, you can run Secret Keeper with toss, technically, because champions never get tossed. Similarly, you don't have to worry about your champions getting nabbed either from an opponent running nab. Even if they are on the very bottom of your deck, they're not going to get nabbed. They're not going to get tossed. You can thin your deck using toss and Secret Keeper and just start only finding level 2 champions at the very end in some kind of, I don't know, weird ARAM deep deck, ARAM but at the bottom of the ocean. I don't know. That's probably a very silly idea, but it technically would work. Next up, 7 mana, the Fallen Sands General. This is a 7 mana 0/7 Overwhelm. Not great, but I have +1/+0 for each ephemeral ally you've summoned this game. So, very obviously, working with Sand Soldiers. Could work with Shadow Isles or Ionia, both of which care about ephemerals to some extent. Yeah. All in all, I think it is a finisher for a Sand Soldier Azir deck, which is a weird deck that you can do. Doing Azir with Shadow Isles has, been a thing. Trying to use Sand Soldiers with other ephemeral things that care about ephemerals. And this guy comes down and is a finisher for that kind of deck. He is much better at that than actually trying to run the, I think, intended Sandstone Chimera was intended kind of as a finisher, or at least a big unit that you put in that deck. But that never really worked out, especially because Sandstone Chimera just didn't have any keywords. So this is probably going to outscale it, come down at around the same time anyway. So very good. This is a very solid card for a very specific archetype. I think you probably put 1, maybe 2 at most. I don't think you're ever going to run 3 of this guy. All right, let's take a look at the next set. All right, the Carved Blade Twirler. 2 mana, 1/3 with Quick Attack and Augment. And it is a Fae. Now, at first glance, not too crazy, right? It's like fine, I guess. But I think that this is going to be surprisingly good. Specifically, there are Fae decks you can run. Trying to run Fae Aid, trying to run Grandfather Fae. There are things that specifically buff Fae. Fae Sprout could generate this as well. And when you're doing that kind of thing, typically in a Fae deck with, Hungry Owl Cats being created in hand by Fae Aid and Grandfather Fae, you are getting a lot, or even Fae Sprout, there is a decent amount of created cards that you're doing in a Fae deck, in kind of a go wide Fae strategy that Bandle City has access to. So having something with Augment and Quick Attack so that it can survive that growth, it's going to actually ramp up pretty high. A 2 mana threat that needs a solid removal is completely decent, honestly. So I think that this there is a place for this, and it slots in pretty smoothly. It kind of fits the same mana that you would be playing Grandfather Fae, but you can actually turn 2 Grandfather Fae, turn 3 play this Carved Blade Twirler, and then the Hungry Owl Cat that Grandfather Fae created, and suddenly you have a 3/3 Quick Attack on turn 3, as well as a 3/1 Hungry Owl Cat. And it'll only grow from there. Very similar, I think, and intentionally so, to the Fey Blade Twirler. I think that's kind of what they're evoking. Also a 2 mana 1/3 with Quick Attack, and a different way to grow. So rather than needing to stun and recall all the time, this is going off of Augment, which Bandle City has plenty of ways to create cards. Yeah, all in all, I think that that is a totally solid card. I think surprisingly so. I mean, it's only a common, but I think it actually slots into a archetype that people don't really think about, which is Fey synergies. Then we have the spell Pytos. 1 mana fast to deal 1 to a unit and create a Perilous Pastry in hand. Perilous Pastry is not actually fleeting. That immediately makes Pytos way better. Okay. That is Perilous Pastry, 2 mana slow, deal 1 to anything. So 1 for 1 damage at fast, not bad, solid. It's only a ping. Rather than drawing a card with Pokestick, you are generating a card. So if you're doing some kind of augment strategy or care about created cards, sure, that's probably comparable to Pokestick at that point. But 2 mana to deal 1 is not that great. But Perilous Pastry can hit the enemy Nexus, which is nice because Pytos cannot. So all in all, it ends up being 3 mana for 2 damage. Not crazy good, but as long as you're running synergies with it, whether that be you're ramping up the actual damage of it, like with kegs or any of the P and Z stuff that increases spell damage, then hey, that's suddenly good. If you're doing something that cares about created cards with augments or Victor or something like that, that's also pretty solid. If you care about just playing different named cards because of Zoe or because you're doing in 2023 or later running the Pursuit of Perfection, hey, this is going to be 1 card that's 2 towards either of those conditions. So I think it has its place, but I don't think it's necessarily going to show up all over the place. A lot of people have been talking, of course, about rotation that's going to be coming up, and whether or not these cards that are showing up here are meant to be indicative or replacements for things. Is Pytos here because Pokestick's going away? I'm gonna say no for that example because of Gnar. I don't think Gnar is going to create Pytoses, and if they rotate Pokestick, but Gnar still generates it, I mean, I suppose that's possible, but it'd be kind of weird, right? Just making it into not a main deckable thing, but Gnar still creates it. Possible. But that's all speculation, and it's really hard to guess as to what's going to happen there. Better just to wait. Most likely tomorrow, Friday and Saturday, is going to be one of the 2 champions. And then Sunday and Monday is going to be the second of the 2 champions, Jack then Samira, or then Samira then Jack. And then Tuesday should be the actual patch notes, which would have, let's see, Tuesday would be the patch notes, which will likely have the actual rotation information. And we'll know what cards are going to be leaving for people that play game modes where that's going to matter. But yeah, Tuesday should be a big day with a lot of information. Either way, we're going to be getting some more card reveals next couple days. That's my thoughts on these ones. Overall, some pretty exciting stuff in P&Z and Shurima with the Predict archetype. That is probably my favorite here. Flashbomb Peddler is going to hopefully revitalize that method of control with all the card draw that's showing up nowadays. I think that, yeah, studying their card draw with flash bombs should be pretty fun. Fallen Sand General, I guess it could work in if you're going wide with the Sand Soldier strategy and various things like that. It's solid, but not like crazy interesting, I suppose. Luckily it does. It's not on play, so it'll keep getting better the more you're summoning ephemerals, which means that if you attack with him and a Nazir's out, he's gonna get +1 attack like immediately. So already, I think. I mean, he's 7 cost, so it makes sense. But he is already a more powerful finisher uh, combo with the ephemerals than the uh, looking up the name of this guy because I don't think I see him ever. The Iron Harbinger, the 3 mana 2/4 that on attack grants me +1/+0 for each ephemeral ally you have. Uh, that has consistently been much harder to do, just because find you need to have ephemerals on the field when Iron Harbinger attacks, which I mean, isn't too hard to do, I suppose, but uh, that's I guess a much earlier aggro tool compared to this guy who is a late game finisher is the intent. You've been trying to swarm them with sand soldiers. Now you play your big, probably 10-7 overwhelm and hope that that will be enough to just finish them off. Totally fine. And then I'll be interested to try some stuff with a Curve Blade Twirler just because it's a synergy point in a very underused and less obvious area. I do like Bandle City a lot. So, yeah, that's my thoughts on today's cards. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and I hope you guys have a good one. See you later.